Hi friends, I'm Abby and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking through some of my favourite standalones that are not fantasy. I have both a standalone list which is all my favourite fantasy standalones, and now I've got this one which is my not fantasy. There's a variety of genres here. The first one that I have is I Am Pilgrim by Terry Hayes. This is one of my favourite books that I read in 2020. It is also my boyfriend's favourite book and he rereads this like every year without fail. He's not the most avid of readers, but when it comes to this book, he turns into a reader and he will not put this book down. It is like 800 and something pages and he is obsessed with it. And rightly so. It is a really great story. You're following our main character who is like ex-CIA, MI5. He rose really highly in the Secret Service, and every now and again he gets called back to help out with the really tricky cases. And so in this story you have different crimes which are going on across the world, and weirdly they all link, and he is tasked with trying to figure out what's going on and prevent this like global disaster. I guess it's sort of like the book form of James Bond, so if that's your sort of thing then you really enjoy it. I'm not like a massive fan of James Bond, but I really liked the way this combined like the spy thriller but with real world political situations, and just it was a really well crafted story with like the political side and the real world societal issues with the solving a crime, and just how it spans so many different countries throughout the world and how it all pieced together. I didn't know how it was all going to link. It was so well done. I would strongly recommend this. It's a real page turner, so although it's 800 pages, you do fly through this. I think my boyfriend reads this in like 48 hours when he does read. He doesn't put it down. I think it took me like a few days, but it's very gripping. Next I have, upon Jessie's recommendation, Imaginary Friend, which is I know one of her favourite books, and this is by Stephen Chbosky. I read it in 2020 and really enjoyed it. I don't think I enjoyed it quite as much as Jessie, but I don't think that's possible. And this story of following a 6-year-old boy, and at the beginning of the book he disappears for about a week, and when he comes back he is slightly different. So he walks into the forest. Fine, he has an imaginary friend which he calls like the nice man, and when he comes back he is much cleverer than when he went in. So at the beginning of the book he really struggled with maths and with his letters, and when he comes back he is much more academic, and his main purpose since he's come back is to build a tree house in the forest, but he doesn't expect, no one really knows why. So you're following these children trying to build this tree house in the forest, and everything is getting creepier and creepier as the book goes on. It is a horror, so it does get a little bit creepy as it goes on. Again, it's quite a chunky book, and for me I'd say it was slightly too long, that the ending just went on and on. But you're following, there's multiple perspectives as well as this 6-year-old boy. You're following his mother as well, and it has great representation of the maternal figure. I found she was so strong and had such a personality. Like, so much of the time you just seen it, she's just the mother, but she's not. She is like the mother. She has a personality. She's fighting for her son and her family, and I really enjoyed that perspective. I'm not a mother myself, but I really enjoyed how it was portrayed in this story, and how she is not just a passive character, she is there fighting. I really enjoyed that book, and thank you Jessie May for the recommendation. I really enjoyed Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid, so change of genre completely. This is like a historical, I don't know if it's literary fiction. Sorry, it's set like in an interview style. I read this physically and really enjoyed it. Everyone says the audiobook's really good. I haven't listened to it, but I really enjoyed physically reading it. It's following a band which has broken up. So imagine like Fleetwood Mac type band, and you're seeing how the band was formed and their rise to fame, some of the period of life where they were famous and they were going on tours, and then discovering why they broke up and why it all went wrong. And it feels as though this band is real, and it was such a fun ride. I really want to listen to the songs that they wrote in this book and just see what the characters are doing. I think there's meant to be a TV show coming out of this, and I'm really excited to watch that because I hope they have done a really good job with it. But I really enjoyed this. It was so just addictive. The word on the back says transporting, and yeah, I was transported into this story. A love story, a glimpse into the combustible inner workings of a rock and roll band, and a pitch perfect recreation of the music scene of the Fleetwood Mac era. You'll never want it to end. And yeah, Cecilia Ahern really captures this book with that. I also really enjoyed The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. This is a translated work from Spanish. I read it in a mixture of both Spanish and English. Like I do speak Spanish, but I did use the English edition to help me because it's a little bit complex for my level of understanding. And I believe that it is a series, but they all can be read as standalones. I have only read the first book. You're following a main character, and at the beginning of the book, he is taken by his father to the Cemetery of Forgotten Books, and he is allowed to pick out one book. It's set in Barcelona post-war, and so he chooses this book, and he loves the story. He loves it so much, so he starts researching the author and researching the book, and finds out that there is a conspiracy going on, and that all of this author's works are being burned and destroyed. And so he actually has one of the few copies left in the world, and so he's trying to preserve it, and he's trying to hunt down other copies to try and preserve them and have them reprinted. And it's like it's like a mystery of trying to figure out what's going on and who's trying to destroy this author's books and why they're trying to do that. And it's a very atmospheric story. It completely transports you to Barcelona and the Spanish setting post-war, and I really enjoyed it. It's it's like a lyrical mystery, I'd say, because the writing style is beautiful, but it's also combined with this mystery plot that keeps you turning the page and trying to figure out what's happening. Unfortunately, Carlos Ruiz Zafón died in 2020, and it's so sad because he was I've only read that one book by him, but it was really good, and I definitely plan to read more books by him. Whether I continue that series or read some of his other works, I'm not too sure, but it definitely works as a standalone, and it's very transportive. Additionally, I guess a bit topical with the global pandemic going on, but Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. And in this world, you are following both the pandemic as it starts and then the aftermath of the pandemic. So unlike our situation in today's world, the pandemic that they had in Station 11 is really deadly. So it literally goes around the world within a few days and everyone gets it. The vast majority of the population dies. So you're following a theatre troupe after all this has happened at the end of the world, as they go around travelling and trying to not recreate society, but what society would look like in this world and what we turn into, and trying to revive theatre and revive love for that passion. But you also have the build up to this. And so I read it a few years ago when the thought of having a pandemic would not even cross my mind. So I wonder what it is like to read it now and compare it to what our real world situation is like. It is a very interesting study in what would happen in a pandemic and what life would look like afterwards. And I really enjoyed how Emily St. John Mandel juxtaposed the before pandemic and how art can survive post-pandemic. I then have Anything by Stuart Turton. So I have read and really enjoyed both The Seven Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle and The Devil in the Dark Water. I'd say I actually think The Seven Deaths was my favourite between the two of these. I read The Devil in the Dark Water in 2020 and really enjoyed it, but I think the crown still goes to The Seven Deaths. And Stuart Turton is so good at mixing together both a mystery element combined with other genres. So within The Seven Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, it's like a sci-fi twist because you are seeing the same day multiple times through different perspectives. So the main character jumps between bodies and he wakes up in a different body every day and experiences the day over and over again to try and figure out how Evelyn Hugo died and who killed her. Within each body, he sort of starts to experience their emotions. So although he knows that he is himself, he sort of gets their cravings. And I found this was so interestingly done. I did not get the twist completely surprised me. It was so addictive. I think I read the last 200 pages in a night because I just could not put it down. And I really liked the twist, how he combines these elements of different genres to create his plots. And the same with the Devil in the Dark Water, that this is like a murder mystery on the high seas, sort of Sherlock and Watson-esque characters, but he combines it with the supernatural elements. So all the way through the book, you don't know if it's a real like human crime or if it's a supernatural crime. And I just love the way he combines that and how you're questioning what genre it is. Like, is it a supernatural murder? Is it a real murder? I really liked the setting on the high seas as well. So Stuart Turton does amazing standalones. Sci-fi standalone that I really enjoyed is The Martian by Andy Weir. This is quite a, I guess, a well-known sci-fi standalone. By now it's got a movie and adaptation with Matt Damon, but I really enjoyed it. It is very like approachable science fiction with the science. There's a lot of science in it, but it's all explained to you in a really, I don't know, clever, easy way, and it's quite comical, and you're following this main character who has been stranded on Mars. So he was there with a space team and there was a storm that came along, and so he ended up being left behind, and now he's trying to survive on Mars. And so he's using he's a scientist, and so he's trying to grow his own vegetables and have his water and maintain life, whilst also trying to communicate with home and tell them that he is still alive. And it was just so interesting in the way he like kept his spirits up, and I really liked the way Andy Weir had combined the comedy with like the horror of the situation and the science of being able to create life in that hard environment. So it was very well written. I'm really looking forward to his next book, Hail Mary, which comes out later on this year. I did read Artemis, but I wasn't as much of a fan as The Martian, so I'm not going to mention that. Another standalone would be The Walled City by Rhiannon Gordon. In this book, it's a multiple perspective story, and you're following different characters all within this city that is locked up from the rest of the world. This is based on a real world city in China, and so the history of it is so interesting, knowing that this is a real place, that there was this city where everything was built on top of each other pretty much, and it was completely walled off and nobody could enter or leave, and it was just how people survived in this city, which was like a bubble away from the world. You're following different characters as they try to grasp what society is like and how they deal with that. I found it really interesting. It was a really interesting like study on that period, but making it a twist. It wasn't like a historical fiction, it was a alternate history on that, with that as the inspiration, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the characters and would strongly recommend it, especially if you want to learn a little bit about that time in history in China. An author that I really like, and I really liked her growing up, is Eva Ibbitson, and she has a whole range of historical standalones. These all generally follow a character who they're all set in World War II or around then, generally with a focus on Europe. I believe Eva Ibbitson was originally from, I'm not sure which country, maybe it was Austria, Germany, and she came over to England as a young girl escaping the war, and so a lot of her stories are influenced by this. There's generally a romantic plot going on, and I really loved them growing up. I really enjoyed her character work and the history behind it all, and just learning about that time period. I would strongly recommend. I think there's like 5 or 6 of them and they're all following like completely different characters, but they all have that similar setting and inspiration for them. And then the final standalone that I would like to recommend, and again this is set in the historical time period, is All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Dorr. And this is again set in World War II, and you're following 2 main characters. You're following a blind French girl and a German soldier, and it is set in France, just how they survive. So you're following this girl, and there is like this subplot going on, and with like this diamond or gem, people are searching for that. And I really liked the way that Anthony Dorr not explained, but like dealt with the topic of blindness and how people come to not overcome it, but like how to live their life with that. I don't know how close Anthony Dorr is to that, or I cannot speak from my own life. Really like the way that was dealt with and how people are able to live with it, and also the challenges of that in a war-torn world during World War II, and the difficulties of being able to know who your friends are and know if you're in trouble, and all of that, and it was so beautifully written. It was a great story, especially if you were after a World War II historical fiction book. So those are my top 10 standalones that are not in the fantasy genre. I do occasionally break out from fantasy, but you know, some of these I've read over many years. These are the ones that I would strongly recommend, and would love to know if you have read any of these, if you plan to pick any of these up. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you in my future videos. Bye!